Eberron content is winding down, but there is still a little bit left to discuss. So this time, we're going to talk about the idea of a group patron, what that is and what that means for you in your Eberron campaign, or honestly, what it could mean for you in any campaign you run going forward. So if you want to know what I'm talking about, stay tuned. So here I am on D&D Beyond. We're looking at Chapter 1 of Eberron Rising from the Last War, Character Creation and Group Patrons. I'm pretty sure you can kind of figure out what it is just from the name, but it's an interesting way to build a character or your party, essentially, and tie them to one singular source. And it's the idea of a group patron. And they'll give you a whole bunch of different options, and we'll look into that. So basically, here's the section here. It tells you how it's going to work. Each patron in this section will basically give one of the following thing. It'll give you an example of what the patron is, and then, the type of patron, a further example, a suggestion of roles that your party members will have within that patron's hierarchy, what kind of positions or backgrounds tied to that. Like if you are a soldier type, it might say, well, you might look to have this background or this particular class or race or so on. Benefits your party will get from being in that or having that patron, being a part of whatever that is, because you're not going to enter into this for no gain to yourself. And then context it'll also go over enemies and sort of an outlook as well. Here it says that you may be able to get assignments, which is a nice way, again, even if it's not Eberron based, to find a way to pitch ideas to your party. And then it'll go down here and it'll describe 3 different types of patrons. Highly directive, highly autonomous, and player directed. So when it says a highly directive patron, you are an employee of an organization and it tells you what to do. And it gives you some example of crime syndicates, dragon mark houses, espionage agencies, etc. You belong to this membership. It gives you missions. You go do them. You are an employee. Highly autonomous patrons are more like a freelancer. You might get something from your patron, whether it's a reward for doing something well. Hey, here's an assignment, but you may never deal with them at all. And then in a player-directed organization, I thought this was an interesting idea. You don't have a patron because your adventuring party is in charge. You're the boss, you tell others what to do, and you're responsible to no one for your own activities. A criminal syndicate, inquisitive agency, military force, or newspaper can be a player-directed organization. I'm having a hard time figuring out exactly, I guess if you started your, say you're a party of 4, and you guys started your own adventuring guild, but if this is determined at character creation, what clout do you have? So the player-directed one kind of vexes me just because I'm having a hard time wrapping my head around it, but it's 2 o'clock in the morning, and my son's sleeping over there, so my brain's not 100% there. So maybe you guys can give me some better examples of ones or ideas you have, or maybe even ones you've play tested thus far in Eberron Rising from the Last War. Then next up, it'll here talk about benefits and favors. I don't think I really need to go over this because this will be outlined in the specifics, but basically you're a part of this organization. It's going to give you a benefit. It might give you a place to stay. It might give you money. It might give you resources, whether that be equipment or whatnot. It makes sense. And then here's a section on being your own patron. So I read this and I still am a little confused, but for certain kinds of organizations, you can join as an existing group or found your own. For some players, the idea of running a criminal syndicate, inquisitive agency, mercenary company, etc. Is more exciting than working for somebody else. Founding your own organization offers a great degree of autonomy, though potentially at the cost of support and reliable work. This information in this section applies whether you join an organization or you found one. When you're the boss, some of the benefits of belonging to an organization become expenses you have to worry about. So I don't know. My hard part is you're level 1 because you're building this in character creation. So how much clout and experience and things do you have as a level 1 character? You're fresh, you're green. I have a hard time, why would me, the potential customer, come to the 4 level 1 characters criminal organization when I could go to the other Thieves Guild that's been established and running for a long time? Again, that's a very, very specific and kind of example, but you get my point. And I'll give you some example. You can use the running a business downtime activity. in the GMG to see how you're doing as far as money goes and things like that. So let's roll into the patrons, because I think I've done an okay job kind of explaining what it is. It's really, more than anything, it's a role-playing and story development tool for the Dungeon Master and the players to have a reason why the 4 characters are together, rather than just you meet in a tavern or you've been friends since childhood or something like that. It could be because you're all part of you join the same adventuring guild at the same time, or again, maybe you made your own, whatever. You can see a list of things here, right? We have Adventurers Guild, Crime Syndicate, Dragon Marked House, that's obviously Eberron specific, but Espionage Agency, Head of State, Immortal Being, Inquisitive Agency, Military Force, Newspaper, Religious Order, University, and here's the examples. So what I think I'm going to do for the purposes of this video is go over 2. I think I'm going to go over 2 that I think are relatively common that could be useful in just about any campaign, not just Eberron. So we're going to talk about the Adventuring Guild one, and we're going to do the Religious Order. So here you go. Your group has ties to a network of professional adventurers. They share contacts, resources, etc. Adventurers Guild are local in scope. They have a guild hall. You might point you to adventures across the world, but the general assumption is you always come home to your guild hall sooner than later. And they give you the example here of the Clifftop Adventurers Guild. They give you a little background on it. We don't really need to go over that, but they have a guild hall, which is part library, part inn, part gym, and part rowdy tavern. We have membership here. Most of the members have a modest amount of experience as adventurers. You can get certain allies for this, whether it be other adventuring parties within the guild or other single adventurers, but that'll give you a decent business there. The group does brisk business with members of the Clifftop Adventurers Guild. Well, the following groups do business, rather. Other affiliated guilds, the businesses in the Clifftop area here, in the neighborhood. House Civis and House Thoracic? I don't know, whatever. These guys do business, so these are potential allies for you. The enemies, it says, individual adventuring groups readily make lasting enemies, and occasionally that animosity extends to the whole guild. And then you can see the Death's Gate Explorers Club. This looks like a rival guild, and they're that makes sense, another adventuring guild. And the Sharn Watch, Clifftop is protected of the Dagger Watch Garrison and Watch Commander Leon Halimar. Halimar has no love for adventurers and is happy to catch guild members on the wrong side of the law. So right here, by having people that you deal with, allies and other folks, as well as enemies, this writes a lot of potential content for the Dungeon Master or the players as far as building backgrounds for their characters. Well, maybe they've had run-ins, or maybe they were shunned from the Death Gates Explorers Club or something like that, and that's why they ended up in the Clifftop Adventuring Guild, or whatever the case may be. So then we have the guild benefits, right? So as a member, this is what you get. You get access to the guild hall, which is a room that's basically comfortable room in appearance and functionality, but costs a modest price, which I think a comfortable room is a gold a day, something like that. If you look in the player's handbook, but at a modest price of 5 silver pieces per day. You guys do have to pay dues of 13 gold annually to the guild for services and activities. Information, right? It makes a good headquarters to learn about topics relevant to adventurers' interests. If you need to find someone who's knowledgeable about the Moorland, you probably can find them here. The guild can recommend hired services to its members, drawing on other guild members' experiences. And storage, it's going to have room to store stuff. Storage banks that allow its members to store their valuables. Some have access to bags of holding, or a safe that opens into a similar extra-dimensional space. In the worst case, an item can be hidden in the guild hall's basement for a time. And there's a section here about building your group. Members in an Adventurers Guild doesn't affect the composition of your party in any way, though it may provide added reasons for why a party features a diverse array of characters. And then we have contacts here. So we have a D10 table, and you can see who could be one of your contacts. So the charismatic leader of the guild, who doesn't actually do very much except inspire and encourage members. An injured retired adventurer who can't let go of the adventuring life and experiences it vicariously by spending time in the guild hall. Or a sad older adventurer who tells cautionary tales in the vain hope that young members avoid making the same mistakes. And then we have a section here. Here's actually a little picture of the Clifftop Adventurers Guild. Then we have Guild Adventures, right? So among its various services, it can offer a launch pad for a manner of adventures. we have a D10 list of adventures here. So investigation, an assignment involves finding something or solving a mystery. Field research, it involves research for relic hunting. Again, these are super high level, but let's see, this is just going to take us to other sections in here, but it's got super high level stuff, which is good because this gives the DM a lot of opportunity if they want to try to repurpose a one-shot or some other module, or just create something on the fly. They at least have a very loose skeleton framework to work on with these 10 adventures. Again, it's only 10. You could obviously make up your own, but there's some pretty high-level kind of archetypes for adventures. And then it says Pendulum Porter might represent an established organization or might be independent like your party. And then other adventurers guilds. A few guilds besides the Clifftop Guild are widely known. We have the Death Gates Explorers Club, one of their rivals, and then the Wayfinder Foundation. So that kind of gives you an idea of what it would be like to have an adventuring guild as far as a group patron. I want to jump next to the religious order because it's a little bit different in its structure. I feel like this one's kind of loosey-goosey because an adventuring guild can be any people, and an adventuring guild, an adventuring party can be comprised of anyone. So it's pretty much just like a high level, you pay your dues, you can come to the guild hall, and you have access to our resources. So for the religious order, again, pretty self-explanatory. The one they have here are the Templars of the Silver Flame. There are 3 different kind of groups within that. There are ministers who tend to congregations, friars who go out and spread the faith, and then Templars who are kind of your paladin-y, not necessarily a paladin, but those who go out and smite evil. So as Templars of the Silver Flame, you have distinctive silver tabards to wear over your clothing and armor. So that gives you a means to identify yourself. You also are allowed to use the honorific of a knight, like say sir or lady, and you are immediately recognized and effectively a lesser member of Thrane's aristocracy. So here it says there's a hierarchy represented on the Council of Cardinals that serves the governing body of Thrane. 7 commanders govern the Knights of the Order under the Grand Master's leadership, 1 for each of the 5 nations of old, 1 for foreign lands, and 1 for the seas. Knights Templar are free to wander the world in pursuit of the Order's aims, so that gives you a lot of freedom as a character. And then here, as far as allies go, the other 2 orders of the Silver Church, right, the ministers and the friars are your allies. Enemies, they give you some example, right? You're an order of good for smiting evil, so fiends and undead are not going to be your fans. Lycanthropes as well have a hatred for the Church of the Silver Flame thanks to the crusade that nearly exterminated their kind over a century ago. And the Order of the Emerald Claw, tied as it is to the blood of Vol and the worshippers of the undead. The Order of the Emerald Claw opposes the Church of the Silver Flame, which kind of makes sense. You're smiters of evil. They are people who are dealing with worship of undead, so that makes sense. So what benefits do you get if you are a member of the church? And again, I thought this was interesting because usually you only have like 1 person, maybe 2 people from the same church, right? Maybe you have a cleric and a paladin in your party, but this could be like you all are religious and worship the same god, which gives you at least a nice deep-rooted thing to worship together or do together. It also makes the potential impact of the DM ever having something where the god reaches out to someone in the party as like a major life-changing event because everybody kind of comes from the same stock on that. But it says divine service. In times of need, your group can appeal to the priest of your faith. The cleric or druid of your faith who's sufficient high level will cast any spell up to 5th level on your group's behalf without charge. The priest even provides any costly material components needed for the spell, so long as you can demonstrate your need or are in good standing with the church. So that's basically, essentially, free resurrections. Each member of your party has a holy symbol or druidic focus, even if they don't need it. You also get a book containing prayers, rites, and scriptures of your faith. And then each member of the party just gets the religion skill, proficiency with the religion skill for free. So that one's got an even more mechanical bonus. And here, this one actually does have sort of archetypes, which is why I picked this one as well. So the Fixer is a role. Might work for the religious order for entirely non-religious reasons. The character does the order's dirty work and clears away its problems. It's entirely possible for an entire party to be made up of fixers, but rogues and fighters are especially well suited. Characters with a criminal background excel at putting their skills and contacts to use on the church's behalf. Prophet, a visionary with a more or less direct contact to the divine. Let's see. Proficiency in skills like insight and religion can help reflect a character's divine connection. It's often a cleric or druid, but could also be an NPC with no real adventuring skills. The scholar, right, brings academic knowledge into the religious order, so you probably would have proficiency in history and religion. You might be an expert of ancient runes or know all the weaknesses of the demon you're hunting. You might have divination magic, so it could be a divination wizard, a knowledge cleric, um, sage background. Unlike the prophet and zealot, the scholar isn't necessarily devout, just knowledgeable. We have a teacher here, right? So you're here to teach all about the faith. Probably shown in proficiency in persuasion or intimidation, depending on the scenario, and religion. Clerics typically fill this role, but bards could be really good teachers. That makes sense. And the zealot, dedicated to smiting the foes of the faith. So clerics, paladins, druids make iconic zealots, but any character can play this role. There are barbarians whose fury is fueled to their devotion, and rangers sworn to track down the enemies of the faith. That makes sense. We have the serving the order religious service table. As a group, consult the religious service table and work with your DM to decide what role you play. What's the nature of your work? Are you smiters of evil? Are you retrievers of relics? Are you kind of the people who just do what they don't want to talk about? You're doing all the dirty work. Hierarchy. So some religions orders are viewed with suspicion by the priestly hierarchies of their faith. Otherwise, others are viewed as champions. So it says, here's a D6. So respectable, your behavior and benefits are in line with their expectations. As long as you stay in line, no one gives you trouble. Rebels, you flout the dictates of your hierarchy. So different options for how your kind of standing is within the hierarchy of the organization. And then again, we have contacts. Retired adventurer, cloistered priest, a cynical priest who thinks nothing you do makes any difference. And it gives us some other religious orders: the Death Guard, elven priests and warriors of Arenel, the devout of the Celestial Crown, and the gatekeepers. An ancient druid sect that seeks to defend against aberrations, fiends, and undead. So you sound like you fit in pretty well as the Templars of the Silver Flame. So that's it, guys. That's the idea of the group patron that they brought about in Eberron. I don't know if this really needed an entire chapter in a book dedicated to this idea. I feel like this could have been relatively small with smaller text blurbs, but they decided to make it a whole chapter, so it is what it is. I don't really see myself, unfortunately, getting a chance to play an Eberron campaign anytime soon. So more than likely, I will try to take, the idea of this patron, this group patron, and I feel like patron, in my mind, I automatically, and I'm sure a lot of you too, are automatically going to like warlock patron, is where my mind wants to go. And that seems very different, right? Like a warlock patron is very different than belonging to an adventurer's guild. But I think that's just a nomenclature thing. But I like this idea of having some sort of group shared background. I always liked that idea. And in the past, it always had been like, well, you met in a tavern and you figure out what you guys do together during the game. Or like, we were all childhood friends because we grew up in the same town. And that's why we're an adventuring party, because we went through some shared experience. I like the idea of like, you might not even know each other that well, but you were all in the military, so you've got that as something you got in common. Or you're all members of a crime syndicate, which could give you cool contacts. And again, I feel like more often than not, this kind of content is good for the players for character building and backstory generation. But where it's really going to come into play and shine is it's going to give the DM a lot of good stuff. You're part of this guild could ask you to do stuff. You're part of this crime syndicate, the crime syndicate could get hit, and now you have to flee from the law. The crime syndicate has a contact they want you to go reach out to. The newspaper, which is kind of a random one, wants you to run a certain ad about this certain thing. The religious order, the Knights of the Templar say, or whatever they're, the Knights of the Silver Flame, they say, we want you to go here and smite this den of evil. And it's like, well, I'm not really in it for that. I'm just here to fix stuff when it breaks, but you get roped into it and then you become an adventurer yourself. So I like this concept. Again, I'll probably employ it more in my own personal campaigns as sort of an option for character creation, less of something that I'm going to hard be like, you guys got to build a group patron and we got to play it only in Eberron. But let me know what you guys think. Do you think this was a good idea? I really honestly don't think it deserved a whole chapter of the book. I would have rather had, I don't know how many pages this works out to be, but I would have rather had whatever that difference is as magic items or new spells or new class options. Perhaps, subclasses that are tied to Eberron rather than just the Artificer. I don't know. Let me know what you guys think. Feel free to like the video or give it a thumbs up if you do like it, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't not already. I also do stream on Twitch. I was gonna say every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and every other Sunday, but this week's kind of gonna be weird with PAX around the corner. That hopefully I will see you guys there at PAX. So anyway, link in the description for the Twitch and all that good stuff as well. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.